very fortunate to obtain a job. The second day I kept looking in Toronto, and I worked for Canadian General Electric on the defence lines up north, the DO lines. We were manufacturing equipment for that project. So I worked for Canadian General Electric for about a year and a half, and then Avro was the Avro Aircraft Company at Malton were in full production on fighter planes, and they were looking for large numbers of staff. So I managed to obtain employment with them in the radio and radar section, and I stayed there along with all the other 14,000 employees until the disastrous day when John Diefenbaker decided he would cancel the project. Canada was making CF-100 twin-seat fighters for the Air Force, and the government decided through the Air Force they would like a faster, bigger, better plane than the CF-100. There was an English group got together and designed this new plane, which was eventually called the Avro Arrow. And Canada was the leader in aviation in those days in the world. They didn't make a one-off model to fly. They made half a wooden model, just a half. They finally produced the first three fighters, and the first flight for the Avro Arrow was only 20 minutes, and it was a huge success. The chief pilot at that time was Jan Zurakowski, who was originally a Polish wartime ace. When he came down, the only complaint he had, there was no clock to tell him it was time for lunch. So planes 1, 2, and 3 flew with the usual small problems and advanced techniques and so forth. It was what they called a fly-by-wire fighter. And there was only one Air Force officer, Flight Lieutenant Jack Woodman. He flew one of the planes. When he came down, he said, I was nearly doing twice the speed of sound. He says, faster than I've ever been in my life. Magnificent plane. The idea was that plane number 5 coming down the production line would have the new Iroquois engines, which were larger than the normal engine. And they were manufactured in the Aranda plant in Malton also. Unfortunately, they never got to put the engine in number 6 because the government had decided via John Diefenbaker, Prime Minister, that the plane was too expensive and just production could not carry on. 11 o'clock on a Friday morning, there was a public address announcement saying, attention, the project is cancelled, go home. That was his statement. 14,800 personnel between the engine plant and the aircraft plant, total 40,800 laid off. Such a thing had never happened in Canada before, of course. A disaster. They had to, instructions were to scrap those planes. Personnel involved on that refused. They'd worked to build the planes. They said, no, we're not going to scrap them. They quit their job. But eventually the planes were scrapped and sold for 7 cents a pound, I believe, for scrap metal. There are rumors and stories that one was hidden away somewhere. That story is not correct. I was one of the personnel who, of course, was laid off like everybody else. When I get home Sunday night, my landlady said, there was an urgent phone call from Avro, call up until midnight. When I called, my layoff notice was cancelled. I had to report Monday morning as usual to Avro Aircraft. Well, it was like walking into a tomb. The number of personnel was very, very, very limited there. I was involved in the flying saucer project, and that was top secret at that time. It was the talk of the plant because it was under wraps. I worked on it, so I know what it was like and so forth. So I stayed there working for Avro for another year and a half, and then my layoff came.